Nobody in that courtroom expected what happened next. One moment, a black woman attorney was standing tall, defending her young client with every ounce of courage she had. The next, a police officer, furious at being exposed, stepped forward and slapped her across the face. The entire room gasped, the sound echoing like thunder against the marble walls. Silence followed, thick and heavy. People thought her career, her credibility, even her dignity had just been shattered in front of everyone. But then, seconds later, the tables turned. That very same woman walked past the officer, climbed the steps to the bench, and sat down in the judge's chair. Because what no one in that courtroom knew was that she had already been chosen as the newest judge of the district. And in that single moment, the slap meant to humiliate her became the spark that changed everything. Her name was Danielle Carter. Born and raised in a working-class neighborhood on the South Side, Danielle knew struggle long before she knew success. Her mother worked 2 jobs, nurse by day, cleaner by night. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, carried silent scars that often made home life difficult. But through it all, Danielle carried a fierce determination. While other kids played in the streets, she sat on the porch with her nose buried in secondhand law books her uncle had given her. She wasn't just dreaming of becoming a lawyer, she was dreaming of justice. By the time she was in high school, teachers called her the firebrand. Danielle never let unfair rules slide, never ignored a bully, and never stayed quiet when someone weaker was being silenced. That fire carried her all the way to law school, where she graduated near the top of her class despite working nights to pay tuition. But law school hadn't prepared her for the weight of systemic injustice. That she had to learn in the courtroom. On that fateful morning, Danielle was in court defending a 19-year-old boy named Marcus, a black teenager arrested for stealing groceries from a convenience store. But as Danielle dug deeper, she discovered the truth. Marcus hadn't stolen anything. The so-called theft was a cover-up for police misconduct. The arresting officer had used excessive force, shoving Marcus against a patrol car so hard it left bruises. When Marcus protested, the officer slapped handcuffs on him and claimed he had tried to resist arrest. To protect himself, the officer filed a false report, and Marcus, just a scared teenager, was facing years behind bars. Danielle wasn't about to let that happen. In her cross-examination, she dismantled the officer's story piece by piece. The surveillance footage didn't lie. Witnesses didn't lie. Even the officer's own words contradicted the report. The tension in the courtroom grew as Danielle's voice rang with truth, exposing the cracks in the system. The officer's face turned red, his pride crumbling under her relentless questioning. And then it happened. As Danielle turned to the jury, the officer lunged forward and slapped her. The courtroom gasped. The judge banged the gavel, demanding order. And Danielle, her cheeks stinging, her pride momentarily shaken, simply stood there, eyes blazing. What no one in that courtroom knew was that just an hour earlier, an envelope had been delivered to her. Inside was a letter from the governor's office. Danielle Carter had been appointed as the newest judge of the district. Her first instinct was to remain silent, but then something inside her shifted. She realized this was bigger than her. The slap wasn't just an attack on her, it was a symbol of how often truth was punished, how often justice was silenced. She straightened her back, walked past the stunned officer, and climbed the steps to the judge's bench. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Gasps echoed. The judge himself looked confused, but Danielle held up the governor's letter. Her voice was steady, powerful, undeniable. As of this morning, I have been appointed to serve as judge of this district, and I will not let this courtroom become a place where truth is punished. The room erupted, some in shock, some in applause, others too stunned to react. The officer who had slapped her stood frozen, his arrogance collapsing into shame. That moment changed everything. The media exploded with headlines like, "Attorney slapped in court becomes judge seconds later." Clips of the incident went viral, sparking outrage, conversations, and rallies across the country. But for Danielle, it wasn't about fame. It was about responsibility. Sitting on the bench for the first time, she carried with her the pain of every injustice she had witnessed. She knew the system was flawed, but now, finally, she was in a position to do something about it. And she did. Danielle began overturning wrongful convictions. She demanded accountability from officers who abused their power. She made sure every defendant, no matter their color or background, received the fair trial they deserved. The slap that was meant to break her had only made her stronger. As for the officer who had struck her, his career unraveled swiftly. He was suspended, investigated, and ultimately dismissed for misconduct. For the first time in years, the system had turned against the very people who thought they could act above the law. Danielle never gloated. She never celebrated his downfall. Instead, she used it as a teaching moment. Injustice, she told reporters, isn't defeated by revenge. It's defeated by accountability and truth. Years later, Danielle Carter became more than just a judge. She became a symbol, a living reminder that resilience can turn humiliation into power, that dignity can rise even in the face of violence. She mentored young lawyers, especially women of color, reminding them that their voices mattered, that their fight for justice was not in vain. And whenever she told her story, she always began the same way. The day I became a judge wasn't the day I sat in this chair. It was the day I refused to let a slap silence me. So yes, the headline was true. Cops slapped a black woman in court. But the world remembers what happened seconds later. She didn't crumble. She didn't walk away. She took the judge's seat. And in doing so, she didn't just change her life. She changed the system.